Hi, folks. You were Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel. And thank you for joining this radio, audio, no pictures live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the worldwide spread of ideological law. That is law that is not based in fact and it's not based on clearly codified law. Now, if you're going to convict someone of a crime, typically the crime has to be, or hitherto at least in known forms of modern jurisprudence, the crime is identified by a clearly codified law, which the perpetrator has transgressed or allegedly transgressed. That perpetrator is then taken into court having transgressed the law, and then that based on facts and evidence, tested evidence in an impartial, independent court of law, then guilt or innocence is determined. Is it a 100% perfect system 100% of the time? Of course not. But it's the best system that has ever been. There has been no better system ever in human history. So, we have that. But that system's disappearing. In fact, if it hasn't already disappeared, certainly in most quarters of Western practice of law, jurisprudence, Western practice of law. And one of these examples, in my view at least, occurred in Germany recently. Now, Germany's been a recipient of culturally enriching mass immigration from the third world, all those illiterate, angry peasants that hate the West and hate Western, but they certainly come for the free stuff. Now, there are certain behaviours that these people engage in regard to their relations with women, and given that most of them are men that come from these places, then there are concerns that are being expressed in certain quarters about these behaviours they bring with them and the effect on the local population. And also the foot-dragging reluctance of the authorities to imprison these people or to give them a proper education, in that it's not how you behave in these, in our country. So now, they could give them a good, solid cultural education, and often they're given optional classes to attend, but they don't attend. So there are a whole myriad. It's more nuanced than just people not fitting in or do fit in, or so that there are other issues there that can certainly be dealt with and improvements made. Nonetheless, let's look at the criminality on its own. Now, if a white person, straight white male grabs a female employee's ass in the workplace, it's a fucking international headline. Take that motherfucker out the back and metaphorically shoot him. But if a third world peasant does the same thing, or even much worse, and they do it in a group, for example, then it's, they're culturally different. So anyway, there are statistics that are gathered by the German government on the behaviours of these third world illiterate peasants that are being brought in for reasons that no one can actually say why. And these behaviours are causing concern, particularly to the female population, so the female population of Germany. So one politician from a political party, a fully legal political party that wants mass immigration reduced to just skilled migration, and for that they're condemned as being neo-Nazi and far right and fascist and Hitler and just for wanting skilled migration. By the way, that's their crime. They're just advocating for skilled migration, nothing more. But that means they're Hitler. I mean, for goodness sakes, that's the insanity of the world we're in. Now, the insanity, of course, stretches now to jurisprudence, and we can see that playing out here with this. So this particular politician, the picture's in the thumbnail, who's a former, I don't know, I think she's like a beauty queen or beauty pageant contestant or something like that. And she's only young. I think she's still in her mid to late 20s. She published statistics. Remember, she's a sitting member of a parliament elected by the people. So just consider that. So she gets government statistics that point out the behaviour, or rather the misbehaviour, of these imported third world peasants, and publishes this data, which the government chooses not to publish for some reason, Remember, the government is meant to be accountable to the people. They've chosen not to put this information out there. But this politician did, a sitting member of parliament, by the way. Let me just reiterate that. So she publishes this information. I think it was online that she did it. But the deep state, the pro-globalist deep state, got their lawfare machine out, as they're using widely in the US and the UK. In fact, all over the Western world at the moment, they got their lawfare machine to come out, and they went after no expense spared. I mean, with they won't bother with chasing down people doing the Palestinian demonstration. No. But this sitting elected politician puts out government statistics, and she's accused of a hate crime. And then the whole media, scrum goes after him: Nazi, fascist, Hitler, far right, white supremacist. The whole business gets thrown. So now I expected, when I heard about this, I expected she would win in court, because nobody was contesting the factual accuracy of the information she's putting out. Nobody contested that it was made up by some third party. So its accuracy and its veracity, its validity, no one was questioning that. There was no allegation of wrong information or misinformation or propaganda, nothing like that at all. This was accurate information. Nobody questioned it. It was accurate. It was collected by the government, and it was an elected politician of the people who made that information public. So I thought there's, just in my simple sort of minded cognizance, I thought there's no way a court's going to find her guilty of anything, given that the facts are simply not contested. However, when it comes to ideological law, the rules all change. And so she was convicted of what? Now wait for this. This is she was convicted of an ideological crime, a crime that doesn't even exist. It's not even on the statute books. You can't define it. It has no definition. It does not exist in codified law. So the judge just made it, in my opinion, the judge just made it up from the bench that she's convicted of crimes against human dignity, a crime of being against human dignity. And you can't put a value on dignity. You can't define dignity. You can't even say what it is, but she's committed a crime against it. I mean, holy fuck. Now, and this involves a fine. I think it's not a huge fine. I mean, including legal fees. I think the whole thing would add up to a bit of money, but there's a minimum threshold of fine that if you get this level of fine, this amount, I think it's like 6,000 or 7,000 euros or somewhere in that. So say notionally $6,000. If you get this fine and you have to pay a daily amount over, I think it's 100 days, then that becomes, you now have a criminal record. You are now a certified criminal. So if she does anything else, it makes it easier, much easier for the state to go after her again. See, a convicted criminal, a fucking Nazi. She's probably Hitler. So how did they achieve this? Well, the crime for which she's convicted doesn't exist. The codified law that she's transgressed doesn't exist. The facts, the accuracy, none of that is contested. So it's a purely invented crime. Now, you'd say, well, gee whiz, I mean, how the fuck would they do that? Now, the judge that was selected to hear the case just coincidentally happens to be a darling of the political globalist left. They love this guy. And somehow he's this real, in my opinion, a real super activist judge. He gets picked to hear the case and waffles on about human dignity and all this sort of thing. So I'm going to find you guilty. Now, as I understand it, the party and this politician are going to appeal to a higher court. And I'd be stunned if they don't win this and have that absurd, in my view, that absurd decision by the lower court judge overturned. But we'll see. Now, the creeping effect of activist judges being put into the higher courts. Just look at the United States at the moment. The I have a look at the Senate here confirmation hearings for judicial. This is senior judicial appointments, so federal judges. Now, the most radical, most radical activists imaginable that seem to what they know about the law is, I mean, you could write it on the back of a small bit of paper, but they're there with their attitude, their snotty attitude, their dreadlocks, they're wearing their Antifa badges and all this sort of stuff. And they're being confirmed into positions of judgeships. Now, the voting, very sadly, by the way, the voting, because in the Senate committee, there's 21 senators that are involved. 11 of them are Democrats and 10 are Republicans, and the Democrats all block vote in favour of these activist judges. Some of them aren't judges. I mean, one was had just been some two-bit punk ass sort of legal assistant in a fucking activist, an activist NGO, and heavily involved in Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And she appears with her dreadlocks, and then she's being confirmed into an appeal court. And so these activist judges are creeping further and further up the judicial food chain. But first, they were getting in at the bottom end of magistrate judges and hearing, maximum $500 value disputes and that sort of stuff. Then they were into the district and regional courts, and then the courts of appeal, and they were sort of patchy. They were saying more numerous here than there, but now they're into getting more and more into the appeal courts, and we're not just talking people who don't have much experience in law or know little about it, or we're talking people who don't give a flying fuck about the law. Codified law is white man Nazi stuff. Ideological law and social power are the real issues here. So complete ideological determination, as it was here with this politician in Germany. Now, I had a look at the number of politicians from the opposition parties, and really only those who oppose mass migration. Really, they're the ones. And the German state is going after them with in my opinion, is going after them with a vengeance. And so you have a ridiculous things going on where people are being dragged into court for because they may have used a symbol that could be construed by some as being sympathetic with Nazis. I mean, excuse me. I mean, again, where is the law that has been broken? So that they've reached a point now where codified law just doesn't matter anymore. A crime against human dignity. What the fuck is that? And it's these sort of ideological interpretations of behavior. And they say, well, your behavior really means that you were thinking maybe, could be, and then we'll convict you on that. So the evidence bar has been dropped to zero, and the state is conferring upon itself the right to go after somebody for purely ideological and invented reasons, that they've committed no crime against any known or existing codified law. And then on top of that, they reverse the burden of proof. Now, this is how any ideological government works. Any ideological government works this way. The communist governments and so on. They will accuse you, you're an enemy of the people. Well, what's that? It's anything we say it is, buddy. You're a counter-revolutionary. Well, what's that? It's anything we say it is. Anything we say it is. And by the way, you now have to prove that you're not a counter-revolutionary. But if you don't give me a definition of what a counter-revolutionary is, how can I prove I'm not one? Your problem. And if you don't do it, we'll put you to fucking prison, fine you, or send you to the gulags or whatever. Now, interestingly, as much as the Nazi regime is held up as an example of an ideological totalitarian regime, up until into really 1944. So the entire, only when Hitler and the regime were getting paranoid, Germany's being invaded from all sides, that sort of thing. Only then did the due legal process things slip considerably. Now, again, if you were, Jewish or communist or lesbian or something, then in Germany when the Nazis came, sure, due legal process didn't work out so well, but that was less than 1% of the population. And there were people who potentially could have fallen foul of the law, but there are people that talk about this, that they would let's say Nazi goons came to the door and said, you have to come here or do this or do that. Then these people would, they understood at least enough about law to say, well, show me the court order signed by a judge. Show me that. And you haven't got one, well, fuck off then. And then the official wouldn't do anything. So you didn't have this arbitrary power that the Nazis were using against that 1%, the Jews and the Gypsies and whatnot. That didn't apply to the Gentiles. Due legal process still held up, court orders signed by judges and these sorts of things, your right to a lawyer and all that sort of stuff still existed. Now, was it 100% perfect 100% of the time? No, but it was way better than what was going on in the Soviet Union or later on in communist China or Pol Pot's Cambodia. So as ideological regimes go, the rule of law held up quite well. What we're seeing now, in my opinion, what we're seeing now in Germany is a situation that's vastly worse than anything the Nazis did. The difference is this time it's applied to the majority population, not to some 1% fraction, but now the majority. As long as you're straight and white, then the law will be used against you, and lawfare is considered a very legitimate way by the globalist cabal, a very legitimate way of silencing opposition to the globalist ideological project. Very scary. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.